Imagine a world consumed by war where millions of lives are lost in a brutal conflict that spans continents. This was the reality of World War I, a global catastrophe that erupted in 1914 and forever altered the course of human history. From the assassination of an archduke to the horrors of trench warfare, the war's events unfolded with shocking speed and ferocity, leaving an indelible mark on the 20th century. The world in 1914 was a powder keg of tensions, with rivalries simmering between the great powers of Europe. The intricate web of alliances forged in the name of security paradoxically increased the risk of a continental war. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, provided the spark that ignited this volatile mix, setting in motion a chain of events that plunged the world into darkness. Over 4 long years, the war raged on, claiming the lives of millions of soldiers and civilians. The conflict transformed the political landscape of Europe, shattering empires and redrawing national boundaries. The horrors of trench warfare, with its relentless artillery barrages and gruesome charges into no man's land, left an enduring psychological scar on a generation. The First World War was a watershed moment in human history, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new and uncertain future. Its legacy continues to resonate today, serving as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked nationalism, unchecked militarism, and unchecked ambition. At the heart of the tensions leading up to World War I lay a complex web of alliances. These agreements, designed to deter aggression and maintain a balance of power, ultimately had the opposite effect, entangling nations in a web of mutual obligations that made localized conflicts impossible to contain. The Triple Alliance, formed in the late 19th century, united Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy in a pact of mutual defense. This alliance was countered by the Triple Entente, which brought together France, Russia and Great Britain in a rival bloc. While these alliances were initially intended to preserve peace, they fostered a climate of suspicion and hostility among the European powers. The intricate network of alliances meant that a conflict between any two nations could quickly escalate into a wider war. Each nation felt obligated to support its allies, even if it meant being drawn into a conflict it did not necessarily want. This system of interlocking commitment set the stage for a continental war, turning a local crisis into a global catastrophe. On a sunny June day in 1914, a seemingly insignificant event in the Balkans set in motion the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a Serbian nationalist. The assassination sent shockwaves through Europe, inflaming tensions between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Austria-Hungary, determined to crush Serbian nationalism, saw the assassination as an opportunity to assert its dominance in the Balkans. Serbia, for its part, feared Austrian aggression and sought the support of its powerful ally Russia. The Austro-Hungarian government, emboldened by German support, issued an ultimatum to Serbia, demanding concessions that would effectively strip Serbia of its sovereignty. Serbia, unwilling to accept such humiliating terms, refused to comply fully with the ultimatum. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, setting off a chain reaction that would engulf Europe in war. Following Austria-Hungary's declaration of war on Serbia, the intricate web of alliances quickly drew the great powers of Europe into the conflict. Russia, bound by treaty to protect Serbia, mobilized its vast army in support of its Slavic ally. Germany, obligated to defend Austria-Hungary, responded by declaring war on Russia. France, allied with Russia, was also drawn into the conflict. Germany, fearing a two-front war, implemented the Schlieffen plan, a long-held military strategy that called for a swift knockout blow against France before turning its attention to Russia. This plan involved a sweeping invasion of Belgium, a neutral country whose neutrality Germany disregarded. Great Britain, outraged by Germany's violation of Belgian neutrality and determined to prevent German hegemony on the continent, declared war on Germany. Within a matter of days, the great powers of Europe were at war, their armies mobilizing for a conflict that would reshape the world. Section 5, A Bloody Stalemate, Trench Warfare and New Technologies. The early stages of the war were marked by rapid movement and sweeping offensives as both sides sought a decisive victory. However, the conflict soon bogged down into a bloody stalemate, characterized by the horrors of trench warfare. Along the Western Front, a complex network of trenches stretched for hundreds of miles, from the North Sea to the Swiss border. Soldiers on both sides endured appalling conditions in the trenches, facing constant bombardment, disease, and the ever-present threat of enemy attack. New technologies such as machine guns, poison gas, and tanks added to the carnage, making World War I one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Despite the appalling conditions and heavy casualties, neither side was able to achieve a decisive breakthrough. The war on the Western Front settled into a grim war of attrition, with both sides launching costly offensives that resulted in little territorial gain. Section 6. Global conflagration from Europe to the world. While the Western Front became the focal point of the war, the conflict soon spread beyond the borders of Europe, drawing in colonies and countries far from the original flashpoint in the Balkans. The Ottoman Empire, allied with the Central Powers, opened up new fronts in the Middle East, threatening British interests in the region. Japan, allied with the Allied Powers, seized German colonies in the Pacific, expanding its sphere of influence in Asia. The United States, initially neutral, was gradually drawn into the conflict by German submarine warfare and the growing threat to American interests in Europe. The war also had a profound impact on the colonies of the European powers. Millions of colonial subjects were mobilized to fight for their imperial masters, contributing to the global scale of the conflict. The war shattered the myth of European invincibility, sowing the seeds of anti-colonial movements that would reshape the world in the decades to come. Section 7. Revolution and collapse. The Eastern Front crumbles. While the Western Front was characterized by stalemate, the Eastern Front was marked by greater fluidity and dramatic shifts in fortune. Russia, initially successful in its offensives against Austria-Hungary, suffered a series of devastating defeats at the hands of the German army. The war exacerbated existing social and economic tensions within Russia, fueling popular discontent with the Tsarist regime. In 1917, a revolution erupted in Russia, toppling the Tsar and paving the way for the rise of the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, signed a separate peace treaty with Germany, withdrawing Russia from the war. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk freed Germany from the burden of a two-front war, allowing it to concentrate its forces on the Western Front. Section 8. America enters the fray, turning the tide. The entry of the United States into the war in 1917 proved to be a turning point in the conflict. The United States, with its vast industrial resources and fresh troops, provided a much-needed boost to the Allied war effort. American troops, though initially inexperienced, brought renewed energy and fighting spirit to the Western Front. Their arrival, coupled with growing war weariness among the Central Powers, tipped the balance of power in favor of the Allies. The United States also played a crucial role in providing financial and material support to its European allies, helping to sustain the Allied war effort. The American contribution, both military and economic, proved decisive in bringing about the eventual Allied victory. To Section 9. Armistice silence falls on the Western Front. By the autumn of 1918, the Central Powers were on the verge of collapse. German offensives had failed to achieve a decisive breakthrough, and the arrival of American troops had turned the tide in favor of the Allies. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, racked by internal divisions, was on the brink of disintegration. Faced with military defeat and growing unrest at home, Germany sought an armistice with the Allied powers. On November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns fell silent on the Western Front, marking the end of the First World War. The armistice brought an end to the fighting, but it did not bring an end to the suffering. Millions lay dead, and Europe was in ruins, its political and social order shattered by the war. The task of rebuilding and coming to terms with the war's legacy would prove to be a long and arduous process. Section 10. Scars of War, a world forever changed. The First World War left an enduring legacy, shaping the course of the 20th century and beyond. The war shattered empires, redrawing the map of Europe and the Middle East. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing the seeds of resentment that would contribute to the rise of Nazism. The war also accelerated the rise of new ideologies, including communism and fascism, which would have a profound impact on the 20th century. The war's horrors led to a widespread disillusionment with traditional values and a search for new meaning in a world transformed by conflict. The First World War also had a lasting impact on the development of technology and warfare. The war witnessed the introduction of new weapons, such as tanks, airplanes, and poison gas, which would forever alter the nature of modern warfare. The war's legacy continues to resonate today, serving as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked nationalism, unchecked militarism, and unchecked ambition.